Alright guys, in today's video we are talking about the PlayStation 5's ray tracing capability. We have a third-party AAA studio talking more about it, letting us know just how excited they are to actually utilize it and implement it into their future games, which is always nice to hear. We're also going over some official information on the PlayStation blog where they are talking a little bit about the first official PS5 ad spot, which we did see yesterday, and I will have it playing in the background. But more importantly, they had each one of their studios who are currently working on a PlayStation 5 exclusive game let us know how they plan to fully utilize the features of the DualSense controller. And after reading some of these different ways that they're implementing it, I think it sounds awesome. And I know that some people think that the DualSense controller is kind of gimmicky, or the features that they're implementing, such as haptic feedback, come off as gimmicky. But to be honest with you, after reading this, it doesn't sound that way at all to me. It actually sounds like it really could genuinely enhance the overall experience, and I am actually pretty excited to get my hands on this controller and experience it for myself. So this is what we're going to be talking about in today's video. If you could do me a favor, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and hit the bell notification icon as well. Starting here with ray tracing on the PlayStation 5, though, it says, speaking during an interview with official PlayStation Magazine UK, John Bloch, executive producer at Metro Exodus Studio 4A Games, has revealed that the studio is particularly excited to see ray tracing supported by Sony's upcoming PS5. Bloch revealed that the team is fully embracing the technology moving forward, and the fact PS5 is supporting the feature is a huge thing for the team. We are fully committed to ray tracing moving forward, and to see that available on the PS5 is probably the biggest feature we're excited about. The faster SSD will help a lot with the player experience, but adding support for ray tracing is the sort of thing that to us shows a true generational leap in the hardware. Elsewhere, he also touched base on the PS5 DualSense controller and what it may bring to the Metro franchise. Probably the first thing that comes to mind for Metro would be getting that tactile feedback of pressure as you pump up a pneumatic rifle. So even though there isn't a whole lot being said here, I do think it is significant, because this seems to be a situation where, yes, the developer is acknowledging the SSD and they're obviously excited for that, but in this case, with this particular development studio, they seem to be very much excited about the ray tracing that is on offer with the PlayStation 5. And I always find it interesting when we talk about ray tracing, specifically with the PS5, because there have been a lot of doubts in the past about really what we can see and how much developers can actually utilize it and properly implement it into their games. We already see Sony's first-party studios doing a great job of that, which is to be expected, and I think it's just very impressive. But when you hear third-party developers such as, the studio that works on the Metro games talking about it, then yeah, I think that's a great sign for the future, and it tells me that we can expect to see more third-party developers hopefully be able to implement some form of ray tracing into their games. So just wanted to take a minute to relay that information to you guys. But moving right along here, we're going to be going over some of the quotes from different developers working at different studios, letting us know how exactly they're planning on utilizing the DualSense controller's features. Again, this was in a blog post where they talked about the global ad spot. In my opinion, there's not too much to talk about there. It's an interesting ad spot, definitely gets me excited. You can tell the whole idea with it is this is just how immersed you're going to get into your gaming experience when you are playing on the PS5. And so, yeah, let's read what Brian Horton, he is the creative director for Marvel's Spider-Man Miles Morales. Let's hear what he has to say about the DualSense controller. It says, the haptic feedback precision allows us to do all sorts of new things. In Marvel's Spider-Man Miles Morales, we'll be hinting to players which direction attacks are coming from by providing haptic feedback from the appropriate direction on the DualSense wireless controller. What does it feel like to use Miles' stealth ability? How does a Venom blast feel? Because of the high resolution of DualSense wireless controller's haptic system, we can really push the dimensionality of the feedback. For instance, as you hold down square to do a Venom punch, you feel Spider-Man's bioelectricity crackle across the left side of the controller, culminating in the right side on impact. Now that sounds really cool to me. It's really difficult when you're reading this, because you can tell they're really trying to explain something somewhat sophisticated and nuanced in how it's going to feel. and it's always difficult to do that verbally. It's one of these things where you kind of have to feel it for yourself. It reminds me of VR, where a lot of people have always said that you can try your best to explain the experience of VR, but it really does not compare and never will compare to actually putting on the headset and trying it for yourself. I have a feeling when it comes to the DualSense controller, it's kind of a similar situation. So we also have the developers of Deathloop. That game recently just unfortunately did get delayed, I believe, into Q2 2021, but it is still a PlayStation 5 exclusive. And this is coming from the game director of Deathloop. They said, "I'm really excited by the adaptive triggers and the haptic feedback, both features that will bring some physicality in-game experiences and give important feedback. Deathloop being a first-person shooter, we do a lot of things to make weapons feel differently from one another. One I like is blocking the triggers when your weapon jams to give the player an immediate feedback even before the animation plays out, which prompts the player in a physical way that they have to unjam their gun." So that is pretty cool, and this is the stuff I like to hear when it comes to how developers are going to utilize the DualSense controller. They're actually finding genuinely creative ways to implement the, just some type of physical feedback. That's the whole thing here, and that's the purpose of these new features that Sony has implemented into the DualSense. The idea is they want to be able to kind of get you more engaged with your games in a more physical way, nothing that's over the top, something that is practical, and I really think they've nailed it here. So moving right along, we have the director of Ghostwire Tokyo, which is also a PlayStation 5 exclusive, says, "Just as the name trigger suggests, the main use of the DualSense wireless controller's adaptive triggers in Ghostwire Tokyo is for active actions to shoot or trigger something, and we also use them to create the sensation of recoil. We're also looking at ways to take advantage of the adaptive triggers to express a sense of persistent energy or a balance of forces, if you will, and for perhaps actions such as charging, loading, and a sense of accumulation of power or energy for things. The haptic feedback in comparison to the vibration function of previous generation allows us to utilize a much wider range, starting from a very strong vibration that is much more powerful than before, down to extremely light vibration. This way we can offer players very detailed, textured nuances. Because of this, our approach is different. It isn't a transient or constant vibration level anymore. It allows us to meticulously adjust the feedback throughout the game." So, very interesting. Moving right along here, though, we're talking a little bit about Horizon Forbidden West, obviously a game we are all very much excited for, and this is also coming from the game director. And he says, "Horizon Forbidden West features new weapons that are designed to feel unique and play a specific role in combat with mechanics or with machines and human opponents. The DualSense wireless controller adaptive triggers will help us to make the weapons feel even more unique and satisfying to use." So not a really long description there, and I think that we will be pretty surprised when they show off the first proper gameplay demonstration of Horizon Forbidden West. At least that's what I'm expecting when it comes to all of the different weapons that they end up showing. That was one thing I really loved about the first Horizon game, is just the uniqueness of the weapons and how you would use them against the machines. So that sounds really exciting. Now this one I really enjoyed. We actually have Gavin Moore, the creative director at SIE Japan Studio, where they're talking about how they're using the DualSense wireless controller for Demon's Souls. Now it's looking more and more likely that Demon's Souls is going to be a launch window title for the PS5. So it says, "With the DualSense wireless controller and the power of haptics, we can make the combat in Demon's Souls feel grittier, darker, and deadlier. Now you feel every blow as you strike down your enemies and cast each spell. You'll experience the force of a titanic boss attack as you pull off a well-timed guard. Metal strikes metal when your foes block your attacks or you block theirs. That extra sensory feedback through the controller allows you to know your attack hit home and your perfectly timed parry was a success, so you can react faster and more decisively. We can also turn the simple act of pulling a lever to open a gate into a sensory experience. This is something that Rumble could never do. It could never replicate the feeling of metal striking metal or fire crackling in your hand as you conjure magic. Haptics are integral to the experience, to immersing the player in the world and adding to the gameplay. The visual, aural, and tactile working together takes this new generation of gaming into the future." So I really like this one because, I'm very excited for Demon's Souls, and it does genuinely get me excited to think that they're going to implement the haptics of the controller into this game in such a way where you're really going to feel the different nuances of using each weapon and blocking, having that well-timed parry. I really like that description. I think that did a really good job in conveying how they're going to be able to implement it. So we also have Godfall, and this is coming from the CEO of Counterplay Games. As a player, I'm excited to finally feel which weapon I'm holding in my hands without looking at any UI. I can also sense where an enemy is spatially, even outside of my field of view. So a very short and brief description there, but Godfall is similar in a way, gameplay-wise, to Demon's Souls when it comes to the melee combat. So really sounds like some of these games are going to benefit greatly. Any games where you really are doing heavy melee combat. We also have Marcus Smith, creative director, Insomniac Games. The adaptive triggers are something we're excited to feature in Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart. For instance, the Enforcer is a dual-barreled shotgun type weapon. As you pull the trigger, you'll fire from one barrel and you can feel resistance around halfway down the trigger. Need a bigger blast? Pull the trigger through that resistance point and you'll fire both barrels at the same time. So that does sound pretty neat. We also have Astros Playroom here, and this is coming from the studio director of Japan Studio. As a developer, we want to surprise with unexpected feelings, so the haptic feedback has been our central focus. For Astros Playroom, the concept of feeling the world is omnipresent. That's a significant step forward in immersion. I tried turning haptic feedback off once and could not believe how much I missed it. It is a game changer for sure. We use haptic feedback throughout the entire game. The most striking are these surfaces because players will notice within the first few seconds Astro steps can be felt running on plastic, metal, sand, and even splashing in water. So really cool, man. I have to say, the further I read here and the more I read, the more excited I am to actually try out this controller. We have Waterhouse design director for Ned Waterhouse, my bad, design director over at Sumo Digital. They're the ones working on the upcoming Sackboy game. It says adaptive triggers have enabled us to provide sensations which match what Sackboy would feel in game. For example, when picking objects up, there is a tension to each press which conveys that the little guy is struggling to carry it. Similarly, when equipped with the grappling hook, R2's weapon mode makes the player feel like they're actually firing it themselves. And finally, we're talking Gran Turismo. This is coming from Kazunori Yamauchi, president of Polyphony Digital. I think the most effective use of the adaptive trigger in Gran Turismo 7 is for representing the operation of the anti-lock brake system, ABS, while braking. A typical ABS release brake pressure intermittently while the driver applies pressure to the pedal. The adaptive trigger is suited for recreating this pedal feel, and it will allow the player to accurately feel and understand the relationship between the braking force they want and the tire's grip. Compared to the rumble force feedback we had in the past, the special character of the haptic feedback is that it has a bigger range of frequencies it can produce. What this means is that sound design and tactile design can be handled in a continuous integrated manner. So yeah, that sounds pretty awesome to me. And so this is where I'm going to end the video before it gets too long, but I certainly wanted to take some time here to go over each of these developers and these studios and how they plan to really try to take full advantage of the DualSense controller. Sony did get a little bit of flack recently because they announced that the DualShock 4 controller will not be usable on PlayStation 5 games, but here you can clearly see why. Developers are truly trying to go above and beyond to really take full advantage of this controller, and they're trying to produce something here that ends up making players genuinely feel like this is now an integral part of the next-gen experience. And the reason for that is because the more of a positive response that they see from players with these features, the more it's talked about, the more it actually comes off as a literal game changer when it comes to the next-gen games you're playing, the more incentive future titles or developers of future titles have to actually try to implement it and not just see it as like a gimmicky thing. And I am genuinely excited, guys. I have to tell you, like, even though this isn't the biggest PlayStation 5 news, it's certainly not the big reveals we were hoping for. I did genuinely appreciate this write-up because I think these developers and those who are actually working with it did a fantastic job explaining what this is going to do for games, and it really sounds awesome. So can't wait to get my hands on it. Finally, and this is maybe one of the most important things that was said in this blog post, I do need to make sure to let you guys know about this before ending the video. In a small little sentence at the end here, it says, "We'll have more to share in the coming weeks. Keep your eyes peeled." That may not seem that significant, but considering the timing of it, that is Sony's way of letting us know that they are aware people are patiently waiting, and they will have more to say. They say weeks, so that could mean 2 weeks, that could mean 3 weeks. I highly doubt it's going to mean 4 weeks. That would be a month. That would be ridiculous. But either way, they plan to talk more about the PS5 soon. So that's going to do it for the video, guys. I hope you did enjoy it. I hope you did find it informative. If you did, leave it a like. Subscribe to the channel if you're new and haven't already. Hit the bell notification icon so you never miss an upload. And feel free to share this video out on top of all that. But until next time, guys, take care.